Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Today we're going to the Middle East, specifically Iran and Israel. This was a letter that was published in the New York Times. It's from Joe Lieberman and Mark Wallace. I am not really familiar with, well, I'm not at all familiar with Mark Wallace, but I am familiar with Joe Lieberman. We all should be, because he was a senator from Connecticut, and he was Al Gore's vice presidential running mate. He is a Democrat. That's the main point. He is a Democrat. Lieberman is chairman and Wallace is chief executive of an organization called United Against Nuclear Iran. Let me just read the letter. It's very short. The architects of the Iran nuclear deal in the Obama administration made a serious mistake in 2015 when they pushed through an agreement without the support of members of both parties in Congress, Arab states, and Israel. A result, providing upfront sanctions relief while establishing a clear pathway for an Iranian nuclear weapon, harmed our national security, fueled regional conflict, emboldened the regime's dangerous adventurism, and sowed doubt about U.S. reliability among our allies. President Biden can use the leverage resulting from economic sanctions in conjunction with a broad and united coalition of members of Congress and allies to push for a comprehensive and durable agreement with Iran that accounts for our allies' concerns and elicits meaningful concessions from the regime. Now is not the time to change course until Iran does. And again, Lieberman is a Democrat, former senator from Connecticut, and I would just add, I think he would make an excellent Secretary of Defense. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen, I won't say often, but it has happened a number of times where a president of one party will choose a Secretary of Defense from the other party. A Democrat will choose a Republican, vice versa. I would say for a Republican president, for any president, that Lieberman would be an excellent Secretary of Defense. I could actually throw in another name. He's probably too old by now. I don't know why he has never been asked, by a Democrat at least, and that is Sam Nunn. He is another Democratic senator, or he was a long time ago, many, probably before some of you were born, but he would make an excellent Secretary of Defense. But what Lieberman and Wallace are saying here, basically, President Biden can use the leverage from economic sanctions, blah, 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 blah. What he is saying is that Biden should stick to the Trump policy. The Trump policy on Iran, increase the sanctions, at least keep the existing ones on, but keep the sanctions on, and that's what they're saying. Now is not the time to change course until Iran does. So the course would be the course that we were on, thanks to Donald Trump. So I thought I would throw that in there. But what I really want to talk about is Israel and Iran. Israel is really worried about the Biden administration and the other Europeans, the JCPOA, the attempt to revive the JCPOA, a Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action that was negotiated by several countries with Iran, the nuke deal, what we all call the nuke deal, or nuclear deal. They are worried that Biden, he's already signaling, there has already been signals, and the Israeli diplomats seem to have gotten some info on this, because they are saying that Biden, initially the administration was saying that the sanctions would stay on until Iran complied, went back to the JCPOA, resume sticking to the terms of the JCPOA. Instead, they are doing the opposite. They are now enriching uranium to 60%, which is a clear violation of the agreement. I won't go into the details of the agreement, but the Biden administration is now saying to the Iranians, well, they're saying that Iran has said repeatedly, very publicly, that they would not do anything unless all the sanctions were lifted. The Iranians have been saying that these talks have been going very, very well. They are very happy with the talks. That is a danger signal right there in my mind. But the Israelis have said that Biden is getting ready to loosen the sanctions. If not remove them entirely, at least loosen them and then wait for a response from Iran. In other words, take some of the pressure off and then expect Iran to reciprocate in some way. I don't think that's going to happen. They have said repeatedly, and I believe them, that they also would not renegotiate the agreement because Israel, and we should be, worried about Iranian missiles. They are getting better and better, and if they do not already have one capable of carrying a nuclear warhead to the United States, it's only a matter of time before they do, because the JCPOA does not cover missiles. It does not cover ballistic missiles, which are the missiles that we have to especially worry about. It doesn't cover that. The initial position was that the agreement, this is what Trump wanted, to renegotiate any, if there's going to be an agreement, to renegotiate the agreement or make a new agreement that would cover the missiles. Now the Biden administration is signaling, and the Israelis believe have already said that they are willing to just go back to the JCPOA and then talk about missiles later. Just a bottom line, this is a big problem for the Israelis. They are very, very worried about this. There have been statements from Netanyahu and by Gantz, who is the foreign minister, and I believe, I'm not sure of his name, Kochavi, the head of the Israeli military, the IDF, Israel Defense Forces. They have all said that they are not going to let Iran get a bomb. But I don't understand what they are waiting for. That's the short statement. I don't understand what they are waiting for. I'm not talking about launching an attack against Iran tomorrow. I think there is one thing they can do short of that, but I have to digress because this is a problem that has occurred over and over throughout history, especially where we, the United States, is concerned, and that is a failure to act. Seeing a problem on the horizon, but failing to act early because of a concern of, well, how many people would die? To be perfectly frank, how many people would die in a very short period of time versus how many would die over a longer period of time? In other words, seeing a decision that has to be made but hesitating to make it. An ideal example, of course, is World War II, or the run-up to World War II, when Hitler invaded the Sudetenland. He did that as a test to see how the Allies from World War I would react, because Hitler was weak. He was weak at the time. He could have been stopped, but the Allies did not act to stop him, and we can all see the result. We can move forward a few years to Korea, the Korean War. MacArthur said, and he is right, he has been proven right over and over and over again, that there is no substitute for victory. That's why we're in Afghanistan right now for 20 years? We have been in Afghanistan for quite a while, and Biden is now talking about pulling out troops, but that's going to create a problem too, and all because we did not pursue victory. Same thing with Iraq. We pursued victory in Iraq, but we were right next to Iran. Iran stopped their work on their nuclear program when we were in Iran, and they were fearing an invasion. We had hundreds of thousands of troops right next door. We should have acted. In fact, I would go back even farther than that. Imagine if within, say, the first 5 years of the Ayatollahs coming to power, we had taken out that regime then. how much better off would we be today? Of course, we would be lambasted by the rest of the world, called imperialists and policemen of the world, and yada, yada, yada. That's what I'm talking about, because we did not want to endure this verbal reaction from people around the world. Now we are facing a physical threat from Iran. It's just... I can kind of see it. It's human psychology, but this has happened over and over again. Getting back to Korea, MacArthur again said there is no substitute for victory. Truman negotiated this armistice, and look where we are today. More than that, look where the North Koreans are today. MacArthur had talked about dropping an atomic bomb on Korea at a time when we were the only ones who had an atomic bomb. The Hiroshima bomb killed 325 people within an hour, probably, and definitely within a day. It just killed a lot of people at one time. We could not bear the thought, or Truman could not bear the thought, of killing 325,000 people. Well, millions of North Koreans have starved to death in 1 year alone. How many more deaths over a longer period of time would have been prevented had we had the will to act right then at that time? In fact, that was the whole logic behind the Hiroshima bomb, dropping the bombs on Japan, because the Japanese were prepared to fight house to house. You can see films of children being trained to attack soldiers with bamboo sticks, and other Japanese adults being trained to strap bombs to themselves and throw themselves against an American tank. They were prepared to fight almost to the last moment. Well, we know from Iwo Jima, we know from conquering these islands near Japan how tenacious the Japanese were. They fought to the death except for the very last remaining few. We dropped the bombs to avoid all those deaths, not just of us, of the Americans, but of the Japanese. We saved a lot of Japanese too, and Japanese politicians have admitted it. One, I don't remember his name, said that we had to drop the bomb. We had to. And that brings us back to Iran. We are dawdling. We are trying to talk Iran out of developing an atomic bomb. I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's possible, and I see the potential, at least, for much worse consequences down the road than would be the case today if we were to act today. Which brings me to the Israelis. The Israelis have said they are not going to let Iran get an atomic bomb. They have already sabotaged the Natanz nuclear facility twice. They assassinated a scientist not too long ago, the head of Iran's nuclear program. They had assassinated another scientist sometime earlier, some years earlier. So they are taking some steps, but they are not doing enough. They are starting short of what they should do, so I'm going to say what they should do. First of all, if necessary, they are going to, well, they realize it, if necessary, they are going to have to attack Iran and destroy their program. And one, I believe it's the head of the IDF, said that Israel has the capability to do it. They are just avoiding doing it. Part of that hesitancy is a result of pressure from the Biden administration, from us, well, it's been that way for a while. Trump, I don't know how far Trump would have gone. I think he would have stood aside if the Israelis said we have to attack Iran. But there is something short of attacking Iran that the Israelis could do, which is to, first of all, say it plainly, not say we are not going to allow Iran to have a bomb. Say we are ready to attack Iran as soon as we think that they have gone too far, and we are not going to say what that is, but it's in our sole discretion. And in fact, there was an Israeli politician saying the other day, or actually it was a pundit, I think, a writer, saying that Israel is a sovereign nation. They don't need somebody's permission to defend themselves. So they should say flat out that, if necessary, they will attack Iran. They should go even farther, in my estimation, and say that if these Western powers and China and Russia, these powers who are negotiating this deal that could threaten, never mind just Israel, the Saudis, all the Arab countries in the area, without any of these countries being at the table, the Israelis should say flat out that if these powers sign a deal with Iran, and if the Israelis do not like the deal, that Israel will attack Iran. That's simple. If they sign that deal, Israel attacks. End of story. And then they should start rehearsing an attack. So that they are ready to move. Number one, well, I think they're ready to move right now, to be honest, but they should do something publicly, as much as they can do, within the need to keep military secrecy, as much as they can, to make it clear that they are ready to attack, they are rehearsing an attack, and if they went through with an attack, that attack would succeed, so that these other powers would have that in mind and make sure that any deal they sign is a good deal that will end the program, which is better for us. That is what I really don't understand. Biden is selling us out. He's selling, never mind the Israelis, he's selling us out, because I don't see any agreement that is going to prevent Iran from eventually getting a bomb. Either that, or the best case scenario would be just to blackmail us forever, to ask for foreign aid, to ask for this, that, or the other thing, or else they'll restart the program. Because that is the other part of this agreement. It requires them, for instance, they have these IR-6, they have the new advanced centrifuges that are enriching uranium to 60%, at least the ones that are left after Israel destroyed a whole bunch of centrifuges. But the agreement being talked about, according to the Israelis, just requires Iran to disconnect these centrifuges, not to destroy them, so they can restart them anytime, so they can just hold the rest of the world hostage. I don't know why the Israelis are putting up with it. It's time, as this pundit said, for Israel to declare its independence, which is better for us, because I wouldn't worry. If Trump were president, or any other strong president were president, I would be confident that we would act to stop Iran from getting an atomic bomb. But I don't have that kind of faith in Joe Biden. He is a very weak president. I think he's a Neville Chamberlain. He will just let the Iranians go on and on until it's a fait accompli. Then I have to also add that I believe a lot of his party, the far left of his party, who actually are the party now, that they hate Israel and they want a counterweight to Israel. Plus, they think of Israel as an evil first world country. Plus, the left thinks of Israel as an evil first world country and Iran as a virtuous third world country. Never mind that Iranians and Israelis are physically indistinguishable. So go figure. That's why the Israelis can have spies planted in Iran, a very closed society. They can have spies there assassinating Iranian scientists and destroying nuclear installations. It's because they can blend in with the crowd. There are Jewish Israelis of Iranian descent who look just like Iranians and speak Farsi with a perfect accent. So I don't well, it's just the way the left is. I have to just be honest. There's so much about the left that I just don't understand, and this is one of those. Why they don't understand why the left would want Iran to have an atomic bomb. I think it is because, well, I know it is actually. This would be another vlog, actually. They want the United States to have a counterweight. They want other countries to be able to threaten us so that we are not too powerful. And they feel the same way about the Israelis because they hate Israel even more than they hate America, if that's even possible. But that's the only conclusion I could draw. So I will just end with saying, Israel, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? I can tell you what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for a thumbs up if you like this video. Share with anybody you think would also like it. Got any comments? Comment section below the video. You can also put questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting subscribers. You could visit my other channels, my music channel, my food channel, my hot dog channel. There are links in the description. I also appreciate the time that you spend with me. I really do. I would also like to see all of you again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.